Turning now to truth, lies, accountability, and the actual limits of speech, literally. We could start anywhere, but if you go back far enough, you could start with the Scopes trial, which looked at whether evolution could even be taught as true or as a theory in our schools. It was made into that award-winning film with Spencer Tracy. And it discusses what we want to do about the rules for what is allowed to be taught, said, or not. We have lying on trial right now because there are opening statements today in the punishment for Alex Jones, who has repeatedly and knowingly peddled some of the most disgusting possible lies you could imagine about the Sandy Hook murders and the parents and victims involved. I'm not going to repeat all of his lies, but for the purpose of this story, you have to know that he has besmirched everyone involved by suggesting that the parents were staging the murder of their own children, which is a falsehood, of course. In 2017, for example, he attacked the father of 6-year-old Jesse Lewis, basically saying that this child who is dead was actually a part of his father's hoax. It went on and on like this. The parents of Jesse Lewis are getting some modicum of process and justice. They are testifying about what that turned into. Bad enough as an initial lie, but they've faced threats and harassment from people who follow Alex Jones, who, and this is important, profits off all of this, makes money off all of this. This is not some random set of beliefs. It's something that he uses as a profitable business. Now, Jones lost the defamation trial, so this case, basically, I'm simplifying, will focus on how much he has to pay. He's already the loser. Question now is whether he will be hit with millions of dollars in judgments. Now, the parents say this is not about making money, and that's an important point here, because while they have suffered real financial losses, and the courts can measure that, they have said for years this is much bigger than Alex Jones. It is about something that's only gotten worse in the last several years, the construction of lies, or what under Trump was called alternative facts, to pursue any and all agendas, business, profit, or political. This is a very real problem in America right now. I bet you've heard about it. Lies that lead people around the country to spend their free time literally trying to torment grieving parents of dead children. It is pretty disgusting when you think about the specific examples. In politics, it has turned to these fantasies about pedophiles running the U.S. government, or that Venezuela stole the election. This problem is bigger than Mr. Jones, but boy, bankrupting him, according to these plaintiffs and some legal experts, might help stop some of the worst of the worst. We want to get into all of this, including the political side of it, because that's where so much of the heat is. We're joined by a longtime Republican strategist, Reed Galen, who hosts the Lincoln Project podcast, has been critical of some of these problems. Welcome, sir.
Thanks for having me.
You look at Alex Jones as someone who 20 years ago might have been considered completely fringe, and yet got a larger foothold in Donald Trump's Republican Party, makes money, as I mentioned, by peddling conspiracy-adjacent fear products, but now could lose millions. His own folks are saying he could be bankrupted. What do you see as important here in this case and Judgment Day?
Well, I think it's interesting. Remember that years ago, Alex Jones lost a custody case with his wife over their children because she said, we can't raise our kids around someone like this. And his defense was, it's all an act. Right now, with the kids from Sandy Hook and their parents, he's saying, well, he's already put his organization into bankruptcy to protect it. And Ari, what I think is interesting, whether or not it's Alex Jones or so many of these people around January 6th that we've seen take the Fifth Amendment, which is they have no respect or regard for human decency or the law. But when they are suddenly in the target of American jurisprudence, they hide behind the very Constitution that so many of them disdain.
Well put. What is Alex Jones' position, in your view, in today's Republican Party?
I think he is right up there with the Steve Bannons and the Tucker Carlsons of the world, which is he provides a safe place for otherwise, as you said, incredibly destructive, strange, weird, theories. I was watching a little clip of him today, Ari, and I wouldn't recommend that for your mental health. But, there's a giant dragon waiting to eat all of us. We've already had the nanotechnology implanted in us. They're all ready to kill us. I mean, this stuff, it boggles the mind. I mean, you know, charlatan and clown doesn't begin to say it, but he has the voice that speaks to millions of people. And it's not just the folks that watch him on YouTube, which I think he's been banned from, but also his clips get pushed around and they further these conspiracy theories. And I was just watching your last segment where Jay-Z says that information doesn't equal knowledge or wisdom. And I think that's the truth, which is folks are taking in information. It doesn't matter whether or not it's true. You can hold your iPhone. It's got every last bit of human knowledge that's ever been invented within it. And yet we have people that believe the same sort of superstitions as they did in the 15 and 1600s.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a strong point, both connecting back to that comment about the speed of information for the younger generation, as well as what we were thinking about with the Scopes trial and other ways that we understand what's possible, what can be discussed or taught, and what, again, according to the law, he's already lost. I mean, Beat viewers know I talk a lot about how there is a lot of free speech in America for good reason. This is not free speech. This is dangerous defamation that has already been ruled by the courts. He had his day in court. Not free speech, illegal defamation. These poor families, my heart goes out to these parents and the children that are no longer with us, and then what they've had to endure beyond. What does it mean, do you think, for folks who are on, as you said, the scam or profit side, if they see that sooner or later he does have to pay out tens of millions? What does that do to this so-called political, quote-unquote, disinformation economy?
Well, I think that what it does is it scares them in some way because now they have a lot of corporate overlords, right? Our iHeartRadio, Salem Communications, a lot of these folks who are, I'm not going to call them mainstream. I won't insult mainstream that way, Ari, but they are on mainstream outlets. They are backed by large corporate interests who are willing to let them say these things because they're profitable, right? We know Facebook trucks in these things. We know YouTube has until recently pushed these sorts of algorithms because they know that conflict sells, and these people sell ultimate conflict all the time. And so, you're a legal scholar far more than I am, right? The whole idea is like you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's all these people do all day. They yell fire in a crowded theater the size of the United States of America, and they do it almost without compunction. And so will Alex Jones stop? He won't. Because I frankly don't think he has any place else to go at this point. He's not a normal human being. This is a guy that goes into barbecue restaurants in Texas and starts screaming at people. This is a deranged, dangerous, sick man to begin with. And so do I think it is possible? Yes. Do I think it is important? Yes, that we talk to the people who sell advertising on these people's podcasts, on their shows. It's, big corporate family company. Is this the kind of stuff you want to sell your people to? There's a reason, Ari, why, over on Fox News in prime time, like no reputable company wants to advertise on that, right? It's Gold, bomb shelters, and the pillow guy, right? That's it. Those are the only people they got because no otherwise respectable company or outlet wants to have anything to do with them. And I think that these people were drawn in from the fringes, in from the woods by the likes of Donald Trump, and we need to inch by inch push them back.
Yeah. Reed Galen, with all your experience, we wanted to hear from you on this, and we are going to keep covering this accountability trial on The Beat. Thank you, sir.